Um, we want to be like the Coke can, within reach of every single decision that you make about products.
There's a lot of data to be processed, and the consumer wants everything to be fast, I want the price now.
It's all stuff behind the scenes that you don't see, you just feel. And if the app feels fast and it feels a bit like magic when you add something to the app, then we've done our job.
Well, hello, welcome to our podcast.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
How are things? You are joining us from New Zealand.
Yeah, today in New Zealand, it's a little bit dark outside, but yeah, it's great to be here and be a part of this journey that you're taking. So it's neat.
Today we're gonna talk about Basket and your journey, how you founded a company and how everything, panned out, during the process. Basket is, as your page says, the smart wishlist app. What is actually Basket,
Yeah, I mean, Basket is, as I say, a smart wish list app. It is kind of like Pinterest and Pocket were rebuilt from scratch purposely for shopping. Basket is a way to save any product from any website on the internet to a really nice space that you can then organize, share with friends, collaborate with friends. And of course, you get things like price drops, alerts, and other kinds of things about the information that you've added to your space, which is pretty sweet.
Right, so you have a web app, you have a Chrome extension, and you have a mobile app.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's been quite a journey. We've got web, Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Safari for iOS as well, which is quite fun. And then engineering, yeah, for Android and iOS as well.
Yeah, so pretty much you're covering, everything there is, regarding.
We haven't got desktop yet, but we're working on it. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you get the idea for the app?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The idea is something that myself and my co-founder kind of worked on individually before we actually met each other, in different kind of strains of ventures that we'd built. And then we met each other in London around 2016, 2017. We weren't working on Basket at the time, but we sort of had really nice like catch-ups and discussions around the things that we were working on. And around 3 years later, it sort of all kind of coalesced, as part of an earlier version of Basket, which was a website designed for gifting for children. So we both have young families, and there's this gap in the market essentially for making sure kids get a gift that's meaningful and useful. So grandparents or friends of the family coming to birthday parties or things like that, trying to find a way of helping get more useful or interesting gifts for the children. So rather getting some like plastic thing that kind of gets stuck in a corner somewhere, you get the nice thing that the child actually wanted. And so we started on this project together of building out a website where people could add their children's wishes to a really nice sort of organized place. And it was about 3 or 4 months later after we'd launched that COVID hit, and everyone was at home and basically shopping online. And what was really interesting is through all the sort of tracking we had on that site was seeing how people were using that tool for totally like unrelated activities. So they were using it for like grocery shopping. They were using it for tracking products for what they want to do when they get out of COVID lockdown, or things they needed to redecorate their front rooms, or things at home because they were obviously having a lot more time to do that. So there was a really interesting opportunity for us at that point to look at that data and go, so what could we do with this, and how could we serve that value better to these people that actually are trying to use our product that wasn't purpose built for that, but they're using it anyway. Could we find some value in that as a business, to pivot and do something differently there? So that's, I guess, the origin story of Basket. It took quite a few coats of paint to get it to the point, that it was launch ready as a new venture and something that was a much more polished proposition. But yeah, that's how we came up with Basket.
Yes, you actually had a different buyer persona, and then you had to repurpose the whole idea.
Yeah, it was a really like sort of typical startup pivot, you could say. But a lot of that was, data driven and watching what our users were doing. We did quite a lot of customer reviews from our platform at the time. We spent a lot of time doing mock-ups and prototyping and things like that before we went out and actually said, maybe this is a thing we could do. So yeah, it was at least, I'd say 2 to 3 months worth of really solid research, prototyping, customer in-depths and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, when we had the pre-recording meeting, you mentioned that you have a non-technical background, but as the project grew, you started to learn how to code your self-taught. And what I wanted to actually ask you, how important was it for you to develop an MVP? It was, I mean, it was important, but what answer did you get when you built it? What changed from your original plan and so on?
Yeah, it's going back a couple of days now, but the the MVP started as a a couple of technical milestones that we knew we had to overcome to build a product in the space. Um, the biggest one was about how do you how do you enable someone to be browsing in whatever browser they want to be using and save something to a native app on their phone. Um, and it has to be seamless and it has to be able to keep them in the flow of whatever they're doing in that browser or even another e-commerce app. And there's kind of like a quite a logical kind of conclusion to that following through, like the user could just share that content, right? And it seems really obvious to do that when you kind of see that process. But building a a system that allowed that content to be shared as effortlessly as Pocket does it, or as other tools like, sharing this link to WhatsApp to share it with a friend, quickly just tap, tap, done. That was our first MVP. It was actually just a prototype and proved that we could do that process really smoothly. And we started with that. We built that prototype in 2.5 weeks. Um, I wasn't actually the coder on that. We brought in some specialists to help us build that prototype. We played with it as a toy for a couple of weeks at least with ourselves and a few other friends. Invited them to, hey, download this and see if it, feels good. And the actual app was just really bare bones. There's just basically nothing in there apart from just a couple of links that you might have shared into the app. But the speed and the fluidity of that just process gave us that confidence to go, okay, now we could go and put together a business case, raise some early seed round, and then start to build out an early app. As you say, like being a non-technical founder, essentially, like I think my background is as a maker or something that, I've always had an interest in building things. So I've always been kind of dabbling in code and self-taught to a reasonable degree. But I wouldn't call myself a professional developer by any stretch of the imagination. And I think design would probably count as that as well. I can get myself around in Figma pretty happily and build design systems and things like that. But yeah, I'm not really a specialist per se. And so recognizing that there were some skill sets that we really needed to bring on board to build this app and make it a really polished experience, we went and worked with some agencies originally to build out that MVP. To achieve that, we had to raise a bit of money to do that. And then a lot of my role alongside of my co-founder was to set basically the scope of what that MVP needed to achieve. Make sure that we had some really good like key results we were looking for in those early MVPs. And that's, yeah, kind of how we got to where we were. So I wasn't really as involved in the coding side of things as much in the early days. I mean, certainly like doing, a bit of stuff on the sides, but it wasn't like the core engineering stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but it helped you understand things better because a lot of viewers and both clients here at our company are people, with non-technical background. And first, you have to explain all to them, well, you have to use this technology because, it can currently, stand the scalability that you want to have or something else, or in your case, where you said you needed something that's going to work seamlessly and fast because you have a lot of data to process.
Yeah. One of those decisions, for example, was looking at what were we going to build our mobile app with. And part of the discussions that we had with technology partners at that time was everyone was building in React Native, and that was the best thing ever. And the other option would have been to go with just pure native, for each platform. Um, we sort of felt like, and the quotes that we got back were, maybe 50 to 60% more to go pure native. And then the newcomer on the block at the time was Flutter. It was super new and it was high risk in a sense because people didn't really know, was this project going to work out? What's happening with it? Um, but yeah, having some level of technical insight into that project and seeing how the community was building around Flutter, I felt confident enough at the time to say quite strongly, I think we should go ahead with Flutter. Um, again, because of some of the more technical level things in the way that it's compiled and things like that that make it run a bit smoother than React Native. Okay, you can optimize React Native, but yeah, Flutter is Flutter is pretty sweet out of the box, and it does come with some nice benefits for some other like aspects of the integrations we do as well. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, we went ahead with that, and yeah, that was a big risk, but it's paid off and allowed us to have a single code base to build for yeah quite a lot of the app ecosystem that we're building.
Yeah, it made things easier. Uh, let's uh, let's jump a little back to the MVP. What was the biggest thing, let's say, you found out when you built it, and then you said, oh, we thought this was going to be useful. Let's say I'm talking in terms of maybe a feature. And then when you built it, when you had the first users testing, what was the thing that you thought it was going to, let's say, be good, functional, whatever, but it turned out the other way?
Mm. There's so much learning, right, as a startup that you go through, and every day feels like a week, and it just goes by so fast. Um, some of the early days of the MVP, the I guess the UI continued to be something that changed a lot as we understood what people really wanted to do with the app. Um, we we spent 80% of our time, I'd say, building the back end during the MVP phase. Um, that was because the kind of engineering challenges we had were, in the early days at least, largely about getting good quality product data that we could display in the app when someone requested it. And so we spent a lot of time on that side of things. But yeah, one of the biggest learnings for us was how to present that data back to people in a way that was quick and useful. And that changed, many times in the way that we rendered that from really complex, fleshed out item data cards back to what we actually launched with, which felt like almost oversimple. Simple. It was basically an image, a title, a price, and a bit of information about the retailer domain. And that was it. But from the testing that we did and kept learning from, um, that was enough of a cue for people to say, like, I feel like the intention that I had when I added that has been captured, and that's good enough. Um, and it was really painful and hard for us to pare it back to that simplicity because our intuition was to offer more and to give more information because it was available in quite a few cases. You know, it was really rich data that we could get back about a product, especially from APIs and things that we were plugged into. Um, but it just ended up with a complex experience for users that was overwhelming. And so, yeah, we had to really learn from that. Um, I can give you one more example if we've got time for it, but yeah, it just
Hmm.
depends how you go.
Sure.
Um, Another one, like on the back end side, we experimented early on with on-device processing of the data. So one of the things you get when you share information from a web page to a native app is you can sort of get some basic information. You can then run a whole bunch of kind of parsing of that web page data on device and do this kind of things there. Um, we learned the hard way that that actually leads to a lot of complications with keeping that data up to date, synchronizing it across users' sessions, across other users who might also view that same product information. Um, and yeah, it becomes a bit of a nightmare to keep data consistency. Um, it's been really interesting to watch competitors that have launched in the space who've also done the same thing um, a year or so after we launched and sort of went through the same journey. Um, and it's an interesting trap to fall into because it feels like it's the obvious choice um, to do all of that, but it took it took time to sort of understand that actually there's a lot of benefit to doing the processing as we do now, which is all server side, and yeah, it's more expensive, but it gives us a result that's more consistent and reliable within our ecosystem that we're building, and that was a big thing for us.
Yeah, I can imagine there were a lot of things to sort out, regarding your backend because there's a lot of data to be processed, and the consumer wants everything to be fast. I want the price now, and they have probably what 5, 6 pages if they are tracking maybe a discount for a certain thing they want to buy, and let's say they have 5, 6 different online shops and they want to have everything to be fast.
Yeah, it's all about speed, and it's all about like making sure that that person gets the right price at the right time. So one of the hardest things about the way that this venture works is that we don't have any control over that data and when it changes. So when you think about like your typical engineering project that you might get to create a fitness app or create a health app of something, right? Um, Even a game, you have pretty much control over your data set and the format that it comes in and things like that. We don't for a large amount of our data. It comes in unstructured, and we have to do a huge amount of cleaning and processing of that data to get it into a format that we can use. And we have to do that in milliseconds. And so there's an incredible amount of architecture that's gone into the systems that do that and make that also cost effective. Um, that's it's all stuff behind the scenes that you don't see, you just feel. And if the app feels fast and it feels a bit like magic when you add something to the app, then we've done our job.
And you've put a lot of work hours into that. I mean, if everything's working seamlessly. Okay, so when you managed to pretty much work everything out, you then decided to launch the app. It's currently right now only in the UK, but after you decided to launch the app, what was the actually the marketing strategy and pretty much and the launch strategy?
Yeah, so early days we started off quite slowly. We didn't want to rush it largely because we wanted to make sure that the tech held up. So we did some small campaigns on social media for that, which got us our first couple of thousand users. And from there, we started to grow some organic referrals out of the app from that, which is great. Um, from there, I'd say after the first month or so of growth, we started to look at ways that we could get a cost of acquisition that was around, you know, sub £2 or much lower if possible. Um, so we spent a lot of time running experiments on all sorts of different ad platforms or campaign channels that we could find, uh, just to really optimize that cost. Um, so yeah, early marketing was heavily experimental, like 50 pounds here, £100 here, just to sort of test the waters. And then we started to really rapidly grow that, and double down where we started to see results. So we had two or three different media agencies working with us at the time to help us on that problem. So again, we've tended to hire expertise where we could, and could afford it to help us out. It's not necessarily really like expensive to hire. It's not cheap, but it's certainly not going out and blowing, a mil or 2 mil on a marketing budget. It's much way less than that. But it's saying we need people who really know their way around, running out a really decent meta campaign or a TikTok campaign, and how to optimize for that. Because we could spend 6 months or so as founders learning how to do that, and that's really helpful for us to do in tandem, know what's going on. But when it comes to actually doing that and getting a good result quickly, the kind of unit economics of that kind of weighs out to sort of pay someone to help you in the initial setup and things. So we did that, and we've got some decent results. Especially found out that a lot of what we're in is clearly seasonal. So there are certain periods of the year where people are really focused on shopping. So Black Friday, Christmas, um, Valentine's Day, Easter, those sorts of things are quite big shopping times. And so we had some lead ups to those that we spent a lot of time and budget that we had available building out robust marketing campaigns for those things to drive traffic.
Sorry for interrupting. How did the app, hold the scalability and everything when you said during Black Friday holiday seasons? Was it a real test? Yeah. How did it hold up?
It held up really well. We have done we launched on the 1st of uh, September, 2nd September in 2022. And so we were just prior, to Black Friday kicking off in that year. So we weren't really on anybody's radar. We were like super early, startup, kind of just out the gate. So we were used maybe about like 5,000-6,000 people on that first month of really like, trying the waters. But it's last year that we saw that big spike for ourselves with Black Friday. We'd had a year's worth of being in market by that point and a chance to, to prove our back end. But we saw, you know, nearly 50,000 products added in a single day to the app, which in the first year was pretty good numbers. Um, that's representing millions and millions of dollars worth of potential value in a single day being added to an app that was a year old, essentially, which is not too bad going. And yeah, the backend held up really well. And yeah, those people have subsequently become, great users. So yeah, we're really stoked with that. We've managed to build something that seems to be sticky. I can hazard a guess as to why I think that is, which is that once you add something, it becomes quite a personal attachment feeling. Like there's something in our app that belongs to you, and there's this desire to go back and check on it, or if you get a notification that something's happened to it, it's quite a nice connection moment for you to remember. Oh yeah, I really wanted that thing, that aspirational thing that I've been thinking about for a while, whatever it is. It's quite a nice positive reminder. So typically our retention rates track quite a lot higher than industry average on 30 and 90-day retention on app stickiness. whilst we're not like a daily active usage app, we're more of like a weekly or monthly active. It's it's really solid in terms of the way that we've been able to create some cohorts that have tracked through from sign up and remained with us. So yeah, it's been really exciting, and butterflies kind of as a startup founder to go through that process of feeling like you built something that people find useful. Um, yeah, it's quite cool.
How did you manage to get your retention rate higher? You mentioned, is it, let's say you have a more personal touch, as you mentioned, or, I don't know if I can ask you, what's the secret?
Um, yeah, it's all going to depend on your customer and delivering value to them, right? Like in our case, delivering value means making sure that the product data comes in and that they feel that sense of attachment and personalization. Uh, that's been our early approach to it. But I think this idea of communicating has been really key for us. So making sure that when we communicate, it's really clear and consistent. And people who've stuck with us and have come and interviewed with us or filled out, response forms or surveys and things, um, say that they find the app really useful as a way to just brain dump and get rid of all of their tabs that they have in their browser. And that's been great learning for us because it feels like there's a huge degree of trust that we've now taken on from that person. And I think you could apply that to any category. So what is it that allows you to build trust and reputation with a customer segment and let them feel like your app or your tech is a thing that's really solving a problem for them that's, it's worthwhile sticking around for. It may sound a bit cliche, but yeah, that's been a big thing for us is keeping that trust and making that a principle for us across our whole team is uh, that idea of customer trust and customer centricity being really important. I think that's been a key thing for us to achieve that.
Yeah, they need to feel valued, as a customer, and acknowledged, acknowledged. Um, One of the things you mentioned, that you were very careful with marketing, and I'm going to refer to one of our first episodes. One of our project managers here at the company at about almost 10 years ago, he was a software developer, and they were developing a message app. And what happened, the company founder decided to funnel the money from, software development to marketing. And what happened, all of a sudden, they had a huge amount of users, and the app just crashed.
Okay. I was gonna like I was kind of hoping for the happy ending there, like
No,
that a huge amount of users and it just took off and now they're just they're stuck.
no,
Okay.
no. I think they had to take down the app for a couple of days and, just restructure everything and see how things gonna go from there. But back to your marketing. How are you handling marketing now? Up until now, we had company founders that founded company mostly, that are B2B, but you're B2C. So that's a little bit different. A lot of them, have tried to, reach their clients on LinkedIn, mails, cold calling, and so on. But you have to use, different funnels.
Yeah. Think about how I can position this, but the the marketing, so I guess from the first year or so was largely handled by myself and co-founder. Mostly my co-founder, to be really fair, to like delineate between engineering, whereas I focused on that primarily, and that's helped us to sort of keep in keep in tabs with actually being able to be useful. Um, and then he's typically taken care of the marketing side of things, which has been really nice. But yeah, we've sort of done a lot of that together with agencies that we've been able to bring in for specialist skill sets. So is it running, um, some outdoor, is it running some multi-channel paid campaigns across a bunch of socials? Um, and that's now evolved to us being able to hire an in-house team to do that work as well, which has been awesome. We have 3 in the team at the moment, all from really incredible like backgrounds that, yeah, it's really humbling as a founder to have people come in and work in your team who are so bright and talented and want or so passionate about the thing that you spent time building, and then now the product takes on its own life in different ways that you could have never imagined. So the marketing team are there; they're doing an awesome job. They're ex some of our major competitors who are now like big unicorns, and also ex big agencies who've got massive experience in B2C and media buying and things like that. So uh, we've been super fortunate to find people who can join the team and help us to do that. Our focus now is a lot about, I guess, driving organic growth. So paid acquisition in B2C is pretty expensive. I guess it's even more expensive than B2B, but um, yeah, B2C is fickle. So you spend a lot of money acquiring, and then retention rates are typically pretty low. People will download the app and then go, it's kind of fun, digit. So it's that challenge of us of acquiring, but then also encouraging that retention. For keeping a customer for us is super valuable compared to going out and paying that acquisition. So we spend now a lot of time working through how do we keep people, how do we re-engage with them if they're starting to drift. So bringing in a proper engagement tool into the platform to do that across all different channels. But yeah, I guess in terms of your question was really around acquisition, right? So it's it's largely still social channels at the moment. But yeah, it's going to be morphing and changing to a bunch of other sort of creative directions as the marketing team really start to spin up. They've only really been live for about 4 months, I think, as a team. So it's still quite early days, and we're seeing some really nice like improvement in it so far. So yeah, I'm optimistic.
Yeah, what percentage of your budget was used for marketing? Uh, Probably what I can guess 30-40% or less, or were you really careful with that?
I think it depends on the month, and the engineering budget's fairly fixed because we run in-house teams, so it's all fairly fixed costs in that sense, or at least known costs. Marketing tends to vary based on seasonality in our industry. So some months it's less than product and engineering. Other months it's maybe double. And it just depends. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to go with the flow, feel everything, what's happening.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. What's the future? What's the product roadmap? I mean, you depends on your, mainly on your users, what they like, what they don't like, but what's the product roadmap?
Yeah. Another great question. I was looking forward to this question because I think there's a lot of exciting things in this space, and the I guess the thing that I could do right now is try and figure out how I can make you excited about this as well. But I think that the thing that's got us uh, in the team really sort of like stars in our eyes is understanding this opportunity around um, discovery. And some of our competitors have really lent into that, this idea of being able to go in to an app and discover all sorts of information about what's going on in relation to products and things that they're already shopping and buying. Um, I can't share too much more of that sort of side of things, but there's certainly a lot of really exciting stuff that we're looking at in terms of what does it mean to be able to connect with the brands, the people, and the products that are in that sphere of interest to you. Um, and that's a really big shift and another pivot for us actually as a business away from where we've been over the past 18 months. We've so far built an app that's very um, Scandinavian in its kind of concept. It's quite sparse. It's designed for really single player usage. And you sort of open the app and there's not much there until you start adding things and making it your own. And what we've realized is that's quite isolating. And it's a space that people hit when they first open the app and they just feel a bit like, there's not really anything going on here. I'm not really sure what to do. Uh, yeah, I'm going to just leave now because, well, I'm lonely. So our shift now is to go, okay, someone comes into the app, how do we make that a really personalized but also interesting place for them to come and come back to even daily if they really want to re-engage with that. And I guess the other part of the tech side of it for us is the roadmap is looking at how do we continue to make our product data even better than what we have. One of the big things that's continued to be an engineering challenge is product variations. So think about sneakers. You go and you buy a pair of sneakers and they come in different sizes, different feet or colors or whatever else, right? And given the unstructured nature of data, that's across the web in all different retailer websites and things like that. If we've got APIs, it's easier. If we don't, it's pretty hard to bring that data in, clean it, transform it, and present back to the user the original intent they had, which maybe was a red sneaker size 42, whatever, right? Out of the 150 different combinations that could have been there based on color and size and maybe a few other different variants. So that's a really big challenge for us. Obviously leaning into a lot of the newer LLM models and other things like that that are starting to emerge to help us with that problem set. And I guess the final thing is coming back to our roots. What does it look like as an app experience to be so seamless that Basket is integral to your whole shopping journey? And that sounds like a big, broad kind of vision statement type of thing, but we want to be like the Coke can, within reach of every single decision that you make about products. And when you're shopping in an app, when you're shopping in the browser, we want to be present so that when the moment of inspiration hits you that, oh, this is kind of cool, I quite like this, we're the app that you think of or that you do something with to save that and store that intention. So a lot of it is about engineering, getting into those moments of inspiration or, aha, that's kind of cool. I saw a friend with those really nice pair of sneakers. They're awesome. Take a photo. I'll save that for later. Where does that photo go? Maybe that photo goes into the Basket app or whatever. And maybe there's other ways of getting that kind of inspiration into the app. And yeah, that's the kind of road that we're going down at the moment.
Yeah, I haven't had the opportunity to use the app, but I've watched a lot of your videos and seen mock-ups. And one of the things that caught my mind is the app looks really simplistic. And back to your first point that you mentioned, when you open the app, that there's nothing really there. That might be true, but what surprised me when I was watching one of your videos is I can use a browser on my phone, and I can automatically connect it to Basket. And that really, is something, and I think it helps a lot of people because I was thinking, okay, Chrome extension, I can use it on my laptop, but a lot of users, and I can presume a lot of your users, the majority of them are using their phones, to use Basket. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's massive skew mobile and massive skew towards iPhones as well. So yeah, it really surprised us, that skew on the iOS versus Android side of things. But yeah, no, we've really lent into that data and been careful to build features that work really well on those platforms in particular. The iOS extension uh, for Safari is a key point on that. So um, one of the things that we discovered was that people couldn't find the share button um, when they were browsing, or they just forgot about it because it's not really natural to think about sharing product pages to another app on your phone. It's kind of weird. Um, so we built this Safari extension that essentially pops up a little overlay, a really subtle one, whenever there's a product page detected. And it just allows you a single tap, just save this to my basket app. And that's all it does. It's really simple in terms of the user execution. But the engineering behind that was substantial to pull that off. I mean, it seems like, yeah, okay, you just allow the user to like save the URL. And then we've had a lot of engineers apply for jobs and go, what you guys do is like, how could you have a whole bunch of engineers working on this problem? It's just saving URLs to an app. And we're like, yeah and no. Um, so for example, a user opens their Safari browser and goes to a product page. How do you know that that's a product page versus a category page or a blog page or something other page? And yes, you can inspect, metadata on that page with a whole bunch of rich information, but that doesn't always give you the right cues, and it can be actually misleading if the developer of those retailer websites has, made a mistake or some other kind of, code is crept into that. So there's got to be other ways of detecting whether that is actually a product page and therefore show the UI or not. And that's one of many of the, challenges that we had to overcome to release that and make it super simple, but also work. Yeah.
Yeah, now that you've mentioned it, how do you know that it's a product page? I wanted to ask you, how do you filter out sketchy pages? How do you know that it's not a legit web shop?
Mm. Secret sauce. Um, yeah, that's been an ongoing challenge for us, and I think anyone in this space really struggles with that. You can go and use even Google Shopping, and they struggle with that. Um, it's it's something that there is probably a hope that some LLMs will help to resolve some of that by training better models for, understanding all sorts of different cues from those pages, whether it's visual or code based or whatever. Um, but yeah, false positives or things like that are really a really big challenge. And we've introduced different kinds of cleaning processes to try and deal with those. Some of them we've tried have been like human intervention. So we've uh, basically encouraged our users to report things when they're wrong, and then had human people just go through basically review those things and then say yes, no, that was correct or that was not correct in terms of report, which then elevated it up to our engineering team to deal with as a bug. Um, but when you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of retailers, the scale of that problem is outside of really the feasibility of having human review processes and things like that. So it has to be some sort of machine driven um, you know, process. Um, but yeah, it's an ongoing challenge that uh, I would love to hear the answer from other people about how they might solve it. But yeah, it's something that we continue to work on.
Yeah, it looks really simple, the whole thing, the app, the Chrome extension, the Safari extension, but there are a lot of things going behind the scenes, a lot of work that was put in, that so that everything functions, quick, seamlessly, and without any problems. Uh, well, what would be just to wrap everything up, your closing thoughts, and in a way that um, what did you learn throughout the journey? As a CEO, what are the most important things for a company to be successful? What do you need to watch out for, and so on?
Yeah. Well, I can't really comment on the CEO side of it for this one. My co-founder Lex has been sitting in that seat. But from a pure co-founder perspective, it's the most successful startups that I've seen go along at the same time, but also what I've seen from our own journey has been that solving a small and simple and boring problem that enough people are willing to really have or see value in um, is where we should focus. Um, and it's often the layering up of those boring problems that actually leads to some things that are like really, really, really valuable for people. Um, and delivering those in a way that is so simple that you basically don't need a tutorial to learn how to do it. Um, that's that's something that we probably learned the hard way by trying to do things that were clever or witty, or even in our marketing copy, trying to be a little bit cheeky or things like that. And whilst it worked for a few people, the mass people who use our app just didn't really connect, and we lost out a lot of the goodwill and a lot of value that we thought we were doing by creating those features or those campaigns. So really, the old adage of just keep it simple really works. And there's also this kind of like misconception, I think, in startups that you have to build things from scratch to be valuable. We've really leveraged a lot of uh, open source stuff to help us build our products, and that's been amazing. So we're really keen on the open source community to do that. Um, I'm also a really strong advocate of find the right people to put into a role, and then really just do whatever you possibly can to support them to just do their very best work. And so, whether that's engineering, whether that's uh, design, product management, whatever it is, um, it does take time to find really good people. And as a founder, probably one of the most important things you can do is just hone your ability to understand uh, who is the right person for this role. And when someone isn't the right person, to gracefully uh, let that person go and find a replacement. And that's really tough for some people. And me particularly, it was a big learning lesson to go through. And um, yeah, it's not easy to let people go, but you have to learn really fast to do that, and to see the writing on the wall when that's not working out, and find someone else to do the job that needs to be done for the company, not because you're friends with someone or they're a nice person or whatever. Um, so that's a really big thing, and it makes such a big difference to everything in the company. And so if I could leave with one couple of final thoughts, it's that culture, I think, specifically in engineering, because that's kind of what we're talking about, right? Like, is I don't know, for me, it's almost everything. When we hire people now, we don't even start really by looking at their technical skill set, other than just to say, yeah, they're in the right sort of wheelhouse. We start everything around communication. And so we have chemistry meets, we have video-based responses, and we look for people who can really communicate and um, build a business case for why the things that they're working on or thinking or advocating for are valuable, both to engineering but also to a customer. And that has just proven hugely valuable to all of us in the team, and I think building a culture of people uh, who work together, um, and who can solve problems together. Uh, yeah, solo devs and that kind of stuff, is the hero complexes are real, and they're really just the worst thing for a team to have. Even though the people who who seem really skilled at solving that problem for you are super attractive to hire. Um, it might take you another couple of weeks or a month longer initially with someone else, but the longer term effect is massive. So yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest learnings that we've been through is, and I've been through with that. Yeah. Uh, One final thing is that we ran a survey recently with the app, and it was a question at the very end of the survey that we'd run about 6 months ago as well. And the first time we saw the result of the question, we were like, yeah, something's gone wrong with the survey form. It's like definitely wrong. Intuition just tells us it's just not right. And the question was, would you recommend this app to a friend? Kind of a traditional NPS thing, but just quite an open, just yes, no. And first time round, it was 94.5% of our users would recommend to a friend. And we're just like, yeah, something's wrong. And this time around, we've done it again, and a really decent level of response from a user base that's growing. This time around, it's north of 96% would recommend the app to a friend. So we're thrilled with that. That's really awesome validation, and yeah, continue to do that kind of thing whilst working with a team that are just really passionate about the product and turning up each day, no matter where you are. Like, in New Zealand, as you said at the start of the call, turning up for work and plugging into a chat, and there's people and discussions that are going on that have the life of their own in the way that the product is just growing and growing, and there's momentum and passion for building a really cool thing that that makes people who use it really happy. So yeah, I'll end on that. Yeah.
Yeah, one last question. You mentioned communication is one of the most important things, in a company, and you're a full remote team. So how difficult, was to connect with people as you and I are talking right now, through a screen?
It's hard. um, I sort of have a certain level of respect and sympathy for people who are in CEO jobs and asking people to come back to work in the office, because I get that it's just easier to build that rapport and that sense of togetherness and team when you're in person. Um, when you're remote, there's a need to have discipline and uh, I guess follow some sense of rituals in the way that you do things. Otherwise, it tends to become very casual, and the business turns into more of a hobby than a business, I think, from what I've experienced. So yeah, finding ways of building that professionalism in the team culture and the way that they engage. So um, having set times for calls, having routine calls that are set up that are, I guess, around specific topics and agendas, and really following that kind of just the basics, getting the basics right. Um, Having a PM join us and really start to work on some of those things, like having uh, retrospectives and planning sessions and those sorts of things queued up every week or whenever they're needed. And feeling that kind of that culture of the team has been key. Having really well structured team communication areas and themes has really helped. So Slack can be a massive mess where everything goes to die and get lost. But if you structure that in a way with channels and breakout rooms and really use more of those features to help organize the way that people work together, it can be really powerful. We're now starting to experiment with seeing what it's like to sort of connect in VR, and is it is it better from a human connection point of view, where you feel more present and you feel like you can pick up on other cues that you just don't really get in a call like this, which is very 2D, and it's hard to read body language in the way that you can when people are in 3D, even if they're kind of an avatar. And So yeah, it's a constantly evolving thing that we keep experimenting with to see what works. And well, I certainly haven't been scared of changing things up, um, even from week to week. Like we'll try for a week, we'll try doing the virtual office for a week. Everyone turn up from this time until that time, and we'll be on a call. You might have cameras off, you might have microphone off, and you'll just kind of put your virtual hand up if you've got a question or you want to just chat with someone, and it becomes a kind of open office. Um, L, what some people like to call it, where everyone overhears everything. And we tried that. It's not great. It doesn't work for obvious reasons because people are super distracted every time someone raises a question. Versus what we found works really well is if you have uh, people working on a specific focus, like, I don't know, improving something on the website, and you've got a designer and you've got an engineer and you might have a PM, and then forming those kind of groups for those people to work in those breakout rooms works really, really well as a like a touch point on a daily basis for a couple of hours, and they just jump in there and they can kind of jam together and create stuff as part of their feature tasks and work. But yeah, that's probably our most recent advance in that sort of space.
Yeah, so having a full remote team might be challenging, but it works. Will, thank you very much for sharing your journey and giving us some insights. Giving an insight to users, who have a seamless and quick functioning app, that there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, to make that work. Thank you for being a guest on our show, and I'll see you sometime, maybe in person.
I hope so. That'll be great. It's been really nice to be here, and thanks again for having me.